All right, thank you so much, Nikki. I do just want to preface something that you touched on about being self-reliant, and I do want to say that our focus is really community resiliency and being reliant on our greater community. And so with that, this lifestyle, like you said, isn't something that everyone can do. However, everyone can take components of that into their life. And that's something we really want to educate and promote because natural building doesn't have to be something that's really fringe. It can be made, it can start with a very small shed in your backyard. It could start with existing renovations in your home, making it more energy efficient. Off-grid living doesn't have to be a whole house system where you're completely removed from grid power. It could be that you just power a few appliances, or you just charge your cell phone or your pond pump. So I just want to preface our
Okay.
presentation with this being something that our hope is that everyone can learn and incorporate into their life, some components of it. So
Okay.
yeah,
Cool.
yep. So we are Soul Fed Farms. My name is Larissa,
And I'm Andre.
and we are going to talk about 4 key components of our farm. That being sustainable building, our farm education programs, renewable energy, and regenerative agriculture techniques. So, meet the family. This is Andre and I and our 2 children.
Sure. Larissa is really an educator, and also she runs the farm. I help out a little bit with some of the chores, some of the more technical aspects of farming. I take on. I'm a research engineer at Western Michigan University. I help to run Bronco Construction Research Institute. It's a new institution it's sheltered by the Civil Engineering Department here on the north side of the airport. And these are 2 children that we have, Ellie and Azalea. They're ages 6 and 5.
Okay, and who are we and where are we? So we're a family-run farm and homestead, and we operate on 24 acres of reforested conventional agriculture land, just 10 miles north of Kalamazoo.
I can start with the genesis of we've been tied to this land since 97. It was conventionally farmed cornfield and hayfield, and I was commissioned to reforest it with my brother. So we planted 1,500 trees that I've been taking care of since 97. It's a mixed species between hardwoods and softwoods. And so about 15 acres of the land is reforested. We have some ash that was hit by the ash borer, but it's coming back and it's being copiced. So we do we do take care of trees, and we like reforestation. We think it's important to have food source for different type of animal wildlife. Anyway,
And we design and build alternative buildings and structures. And we'll talk about that a little more. But we just want to put out our mission statement. So living sustainably and off-grid promotes an exemplary lifestyle, and it can foster a beautiful future. We have a mission to share this knowledge with others and develop solid solutions to help grow a resilient and viable future. So regenerative farming, I have this title here that it is a climate change solution. And while that is a big statement, it is one that I firmly believe in. And there are many studies that show that regenerative farming can actually reduce a lot of the negative effects of climate change by keeping carbon in the soil. I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide, but just so people know how we're operating. So we grow fruits and vegetables on 1/3 of an acre. And we use resources that we have on the site for fertility and maintenance. That includes goat and chicken animal integration, cover cropping, and no-till agriculture. So we run a 25-week CSA program for 18 families. And this is something where we're always seeking volunteer help if people want to get their hands in the soil and grow more connected to their food and to the land. So what is regenerative farming? Regenerative farming helps keep carbon in the soil. It focuses on soil health through cover cropping, composting, and no-till farming. This is a really great example of the difference between conventional agriculture and regenerative or organic farming practices. So not only is this better for keeping carbon in the soil, it also leads to more nutrient-dense food. There's studies out there that show that farms that use regenerative farming techniques have up to 3 times more nutrients and minerals in their produce. And that's even compared to high quality organic farming that uses more conventional techniques such as tillage and adding in amendments, like more standard amendments. So with regenerative farming, it can really help with minimizing disease pressure, pest pressure, and of course the need for excessive amounts of fertilizer. It creates an environment conducive to biodiversity, not void of life.
If I may chime in, I think it also helps to retain a lot of water.
Yes.
And we know that before we start farming conventionally, this type of soil could retain a lot of water. So now we have a lot of runoff, rivers swell. Even if we have a 2-inch rain event, that shouldn't be happening, and all this nutrients end up in the Mississippi Delta down in the Gulf of Mexico. And so with regenerative farming, and we are learning that it's a symbiotic relationship between bacteria, yeast, and microorganisms. And I don't know, I think you'll touch on this, but I just wanted to say that also retains moisture. I think it's a big component of this technique.
Yeah, our topsoils used to be easily a foot in this whole region, and now they're completely eroded away. So mainstream agriculture is really desertifying our climate, and this is probably one of the biggest harming factors and contributing factors of climate change. Okay, just to show a few pictures of our CSA program. So our model, we really like to incorporate community involvement. And so we have people come to the farm weekly. And a lot of the weeks we have people pick some of the produce as well. So whether that be flowers or tomatoes, or we have a free you pick raspberries where people can come out. It's always a fun time on CSA pickup. Kids are playing, people are discussing matters about how to save the world and about how all of the problems they have. And yes, it's a great program, both for customers and for us. Oops. Here's just a few more pictures. These are our goats grazing on some lovely spring pasture. A lovely watermelon. Yes, we grow a lot of diversity, over 50 different crops. One of the best things that we've done to incorporate education on our farm is 2 years ago, we started a kids farm school program. So we keep this pretty broad. We offer it from children age infancy to 13 is the oldest children that we have. And it's all summer long. It involves the families and the children. It's a drop-in style. So we have between 20 to 35 children who will attend weekly. And each child has their own garden plot that they tend to. They can plant whatever they want. We have plant starts and seeds available for them, and we generate all of this through donations. And each week they learn about different elements of the plant life cycle, tending to crops, harvesting. And then we have themes we focus on. So some of those could be fire making. We have a honeybee demonstration. Every year our honeybee keeper comes out. Animal husbandry is a key component of the farm school. And every week we end with a wonderful, quiet, meditative time in the forest where they write in their nature journals or they have a meditation. At the end of our whole session, we have a child-led farmer market stand. And it's great to teach them entrepreneurial skills and encourage artistic making of goods and items. Yes, and so we are seeking funding for expansion. There's a lot of interest in this program. I had to turn people away this year, and we would love to be able to offer this perhaps 2 times a week. And either keep it donation-based or offer a mix of donation-based and charging. Here's some pictures of all of our children. This is the forest at the end of the group, and at the end of the day, we come and sit in a circle in the forest. This is my daughter harvesting from our greenhouse. Here's some of the art projects the children do. They can vary a lot. This one here, they made honeybee, native bee homes. Here they did some block printing, some nature art. Here's some photos of our animals. So, and this one over here, the butterfly, it's a little hard to see, but the children actually found a butterfly with a broken wing. And so they decided to use parchment paper and glue and straw to make it another wing. And while it was mildly successful, it was more about the care and the ingenuity and the creativity and what animal husbandry really teaches kids, which is how to care for other living beings, how to be gentle, how to be kind. And it's just a really important part of our farm school. This was one of my favorite days we did this year. We had the children actively help us in restuccoing our outdoor kitchen bench. So you can see here, they actually use their feet to mix up the earth and stucco mixture. And so it's a very sensational feeling, getting their feet squished up in the mud. They loved it so much. And we were able to patch up the whole kitchen and really teaching children that they can build something is very empowering, not just for children, but adults as well. And that's one thing about this program that I continually hear week after week is just how much not just the kids are learning, but the adults. I've had parents tell me, I've never dug potatoes out of the ground. This is so exciting. And I didn't know that a pepper turned from green to orange. The things that I sort of take for granted is very important knowledge for these people to gain. So we would love to expand this program. Definitely seeking any funding or help with that. Now I'll hand it over to Andre, and he's going to talk a bit about the natural building that we do on our property.
Okay, well, natural building, the way we define it is to use materials that we have readily available. A lot of native cherries, and different roundwoods and native clays. And we do a lot of design and experimenting on native soils that are being found and their compressive strength, and then do different mixtures. So we know different spots of the land yield different properties that we are looking for. What you see here in this picture is a cordwood wall in our outdoor kitchen meeting area. So the natural building is something that is readily available that you have around and that you can build with. So that's how we define it. It can involve straw, different fibers, like I said, native clay soils,
Recycled materials like the
recycled
wine
materials.
bottles.
Yes, these are some of the structures that we build, agricultural structures that we build on the land. On the bottom left, you see that's the meeting area where the children we process some of the vegetables in the outdoor kitchen. We have a barn that we also build out of black locust, just cutting our teeth in these type of methods. I guess these are the pictures of the recycled material, making bottled windows. Yeah.
They let in beautiful light and they're free, and it also just makes me really happy knowing how happy everyone got everyone consuming the liquid got when we made this.
Okay, so these are the pictures of the groundbreaking of our house. We locally sourced all the timbers. We worked with tree forester who was able to give us a lot of the timbers.
Actually, these ones that you see here though are all off of our land. So
yes, they are.
They were all peeled.
We had to jump through a lot of hoops. This is the local building department comes over and they're scrutinizing our work a lot, which is okay. So we jump the hoops. We are able to do it. We can guide people how to do it. We found resources. Nationally, it's very scarce, but you're able to do it. It needs to be graded by someone who knows how to grade wood. Usually, wood is graded for international pallets for shipment. So there is a gentleman who comes from Traverse area, and he grades wood for hardwood pallets for international shipping. And he also grades equipment mats that you see on the side of the road when they're erecting utility poles or whatever. But he's able to grade lumber for structures.
So that was something we learned after we got all of the beams up, and they were gracious enough to let us grade them in place.
Oh, it's standard method. Yeah, there's more pictures of the superstructure going up for the straw bale. We decided to put up the roof first before we start infilling with the straw bales. So that's some of the pictures of the superstructure going up. Here's a sequence of photographs in chronological order. Infilling with the bales and then plastering. Okay, so I mean, we can get into detail how to build a structure like this, but simply is the superstructure is made of timbers, and then you have to have lateral restraining elements. We use welded wire mesh on both sides of the bales. There is international building code which Michigan has adopted. It's well documented, and so we follow the code for this type of a method. This is the first straw bale house on books in Kalamazoo County.
So the last picture shows nearly finished house. We covered the straw in 3 successive layers of lime stucco. Inside.
Okay, so here's so we have it's low skill type of activity for applying the stucco. So we had students or friends come over.
Yeah,
and so again, it was more of a community type event
this allowed us to really build a lot of community. We had weekly stucco parties where we would have people help us in the whole process, from sifting the clay to making up the mixture to spreading it on the walls. This was really labor intensive. Took us to do the interior, it took us about 6 weeks.
Yeah, we did a lot of design and experiment early on with the outdoor kitchen where we tested different soils, what works, what doesn't, if it cracks or if it has adequate compressive strength. And
There's not a lot of information on this type of building. You can find information, but the stucco recipes are all very vague, such as it depends on your soil type, how much sand do you add, how much straw do you add, and so
you have to do a lot of design experiment on your own.
right. And you can see in this final picture the white walls. That was made with kaolin clay that we sourced from a pottery company. And that mixture had toilet paper in it, as well as cattail fiber. And so, yes, it's been a very organic process, but it's turned out pretty beautiful. And this is a picture of our finished house.
Sure. Some of the methods that we employed were vegetable roofing. We know that a lot of the building materials are being degraded by the ultraviolet light. So if you're able to cover some of these roofing materials with vegetable roofing, then the UV is not able to degrade the rubber membranes. So
water retention.
oh yeah, also helps with water retention. We're noticing the performance of these type of systems is that it retains a lot of moisture. So when we have a rain event, the roof gets saturated and then gives off water for days. It drips for days after the rain. So
rather than gushing down all at once.
Okay. Yeah, and then some of the community members were able to showcase their artistic skills.
Yeah, just a few pictures. We just got our flooring installed a few days ago. But we are still in the process of building our kitchen and finishing up our bathroom.
Okay, so here's some of the underlying science behind bale walls. Here's a top view of a conventional stick frame building, where we see the stud from the top view, and you can see how we call it thermal bridging. The wood is actually somewhat of a conductor of heat. So you can see on the top left, you see these what we call isotherms. Those are the gradient lines of temperature. So that the stud in the brown, you see it kind of radiates heat out, and then the standard wall, 4-inch wall would have an R factor of about 14 R. If you compare that to a straw bale wall, you see that the R value is about 36, and there's no thermal bridging. The isotherms are parallel to one another. Anyway, I put this in there because there's a lot of science behind it. There's a lot of research that's being done on this front. Yeah, I think when they're talking about decarbonizing the economy, they're trying to come off the fossil fuels, and everything is going to be powered by solar or even nuclear. Now they're talking about that, but a lot of these installations and a lot of these elements are a byproduct of the fossil industry. So if they're saying that they're going to phase that out, how are you going to insulate? What are you going to insulate with? So they're saying concrete is not going to be feasible to do because it has a lot of high embodied energy. So you have to somehow compensate for that. So I think natural occurring fibers and uh, earthen plasters are going to be more common. So I think that I mean we're somewhat doing this to see what happens. I mean, we're not afraid to experiment on our own here. So we can kind of gain some knowledge and pass it on to others. Okay, go ahead. There's
talk about the
nah, if someone's interested, I mean, there's a lot of information. So I'm again, this is another paper on this topic, seismic design factors. It turns out that this type of method is very good in seismic areas. It's very heavy,
very fire retardant too.
Well, yeah, compared to conventional building, these type of systems are quite heavy because the bale, if you can understand, it's compared to a conventional wall, it has a lot more mass. It's massive, and so it would move less during seismic events. So if someone's interested, we can talk about this in the future. The Chinese are researching this. Also on the right, you see some testing done on bale walls. We have similar facilities here at Western. We can test shear walls also. We haven't done straw bale walls. I'm trying to push for that to research this more locally. I mean, straw, we knew about straw for a long time, but the straw bale, the way we bale it, it's a modern invention to have such a compact bale. It's something that we didn't have 50 years ago. So we knew about straw a long time ago, but to put it in such a format, it's a rather new invention. And we perused the whole Kalamazoo County for straw source. We found a source that has very uniform product, a product that is very low moisture content, product that is doesn't have any mold. We went from barn to barn and understanding who has what kind of a product. And there's some farmers with modern equipment who are able to bale very consistent product, and they can pack it into super bales, they call them. So it's 20 bales and it's easy to offload. And so if somebody wants to talk about this further, we would be a good resource for that locally. Okay, go ahead.
I just also wanted to mention I have a friend in the UP who built a cedar bale house because straw is not so prevalent in the UP, but cedar is rampant, and so that was made out of compressed cedar wood shavings. So really, natural building is about using the materials that you have locally.
So here you see excerpts from International Residential Code, IRC, that Michigan has adopted. So when you're talking to a building official, he'll be able to understand what you're doing. So if you see on the bottom right, that's basically the method that we employed. And so there's a lot of knowledge that you can gain just reading code books. And then so it's not something that we just made up. We follow code in building these type of structures. Here's some solar equipment. That was the first thing that we built. Was before we start building the house, we actually farmed this land. Initially, after reforesting, we wanted to irrigate. So that was so we have a well that runs off of solar. So that was the biggest motivation for irrigation. And so we kind of cross this barrier to irrigate off grid with solar panels, and it worked quite well. The batteries are charged. You can pump water for virtually for free. The aquifer that runs through Kalamazoo County, it's continuous, so there is a lot of water that we have available. So once the batteries are charged, you are able to pump water and irrigate. So I think that would be another thing to comment on, that the vegetables are grown with solar power. I think that it's kind of the name of Soul-Fed Farm. I think it was basically
that we're being fed by the sun.
Being fed by the sun, yeah.
But so not just pumping water, but we've been living off grid for uh this will be the 6th summer, but we're going into our first winter of living off grid, and we know we'll need to upgrade. We'll definitely need a windmill. We're blessed to live in a very windy area. And so that will really help us be able to bridge those really, really cloudy days. But we were able to build the whole entire house off grid. We did get a generator last year because someone gave us one, and we've had to run that a couple of times. But it can run, that simple system we have can run pretty much everything we need during the day. So it's been a real learning curve to learn how to live off grid. I can say I'm pretty proficient at it now, but it took me a long time. Things people don't think about, like you can't start your laundry as soon as you wake up in the morning or right before you go to bed. You have to do it in the height of the day. You can only use your solar oven when it's sunny out, and sometimes the sun goes away. And you can't run multiple appliances at the same time. And so that's just been something that's really helped me connect to the land, maybe more than anything. Well, farming and living off grid has just really helped me to understand the cycles of the earth, and the fact that we can harness this energy with solar panels is just remarkable to me. So here we have some of our future farm goals. We would really love to have an internship program. That could look like a lot of different things. It could be teaching the youth. It could be a person in their 20s who wants to get started in farming but doesn't have the resources or the land or all of the know-how. I'd really love to find someone who wants to kind of take over the farming operations, the production operations, and I would like to focus more on the educational elements. And so within those educational elements, we'd love to start having more workshops, fossil fuel free cooking demos. We just got a bucket on our tractor, so we're hoping to expand our composting operation and perhaps take in compost from our neighbors on a weekly basis. And we want to plant more perennials, fruit trees, and asparagus. So, you want to talk about this?
Sure. So we don't have a steady source of electrical energy, so we would like to. It becomes an issue in the springtime when we are doing starts in the greenhouse, and how do you heat it? We would like to enter into the arena of methane digestion. That's something that we would like to put out there. Maybe we can collaborate on some of this, or we know how the technology works. We would like to bring it on board.
Slide for that.
I think you have a slide. She's going to talk about biodigestion. We know that a lot of I think it was like the statistics are speak for themselves. I think it was like 40% of the food in America ends up in landfills, which creates methane.
Right, or we could be harvesting that
So
energy to cook with or heat things.
Yeah, this year we expanded the CSA with the offer where people can, because we are exporting a lot of nutrients out of the farm, and then we were asking our customers to bring back the food scraps so we can compost it, but we would really like to make methane out of it to create cooking gas or gas to heat up the greenhouse so we can make starts. So this is something that we are going to pursue in the next couple of months. And if somebody's interested in coming on this journey with us, you're more than welcome.
Yeah, so this is a company that we found that we really love called Biogas. They offer several different types of at-home methane digesters. We don't really know of anyone doing this. And so I don't have firsthand experience of people's success rates. However, everything I read about them is great. And this is something you could build on your own. You wouldn't necessarily need to buy this bladder. If we found someone who was really innovative and wanted to make it out of a IBS tote,
IBA totes, or you can probably make it out of EPDM rubber and then just
glue it together.
glue it together somehow. I mean, I would be into if we had more time, I would be willing to invent something like this, but there's off-the-shelf solutions.
Yes.
You know.
So just to get started, this would be like an excellent incentive. And so, this is really claiming that the amount of waste you produce in one day can help you cook for up to 4 hours. This one is up to 4 hours of cooking. There's smaller ones that provide about 2 hours of cooking. If you wanted to use it for cooking, we have an interest in using it to heat up our plant starts in the springtime and then transfer to cooking in the summer as we move towards outdoor cooking in our kitchen.
We have a on-demand boiler that runs off of natural gas or propane rather.
Yeah.
So we are going to somehow manipulate it to heat up water and then put it in the seed starts in the bed of it. So
one thing I really love about this system is that it produces fertilizer you can use for your garden. So the compost isn't being like completely digested and eaten up and non-usable anymore, which I love. And so this is something that would just be a really good fit for our family. The next thing we're interested in expanding and possibly doing in the future is called agrovoltaics. So agro meaning agriculture and voltaics meaning photovoltaics. So this combines and marries both of those systems, which is amazing because a big complaint from people is that solar farms just take up the land, just take up so much space, and you can't use the land for anything else. But in this system, on a small scale, you raise up the solar panels higher than they normally would be. And what it does is actually provides a relatively partial shady and more reasonable working environment. And now that does limit the types of things you could grow, but in this picture here, you can see that they're growing lettuce, which is perfect for having some shade in the middle of the day. We have a 5-acre open plot on the east side of our property with no access to water. And so one of the project potentials could be something like this. Okay, ways to support our programs. We are collecting donations, and those would go towards physical items are like farming tools for our kids and adults, art supplies for the farm school program, seeking volunteers on the farm, seeking administrative help. We know we have the potential and the possibility to learn things like web design, but also if someone else was passionate about that. Also interested in obtaining a nonprofit status. Currently, we're a DBA. And then, of course, monetary donations, spreading the word. And that's all we got. Thank you, everyone.
thank you very much. This is our first time doing this, so this is somewhat of an experiment. So you for bearing with us, and hopefully you might learn something. I mean, we're like she said, we are just 5 minutes north of town, so it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, we welcome visitors, volunteers, curious minds.
So, Steve, if you'd like to ask your question.
My first question, I guess, is will you guys adopt me? I wish
He comes
I
with a family.
had just a wife now. My kids are all.
It depends what your skills are.
Yeah, I don't none that I can think actually.
Eating and producing biogas.
Yeah, well, that I mean, yeah, actually, I'm quite good at that. I wish I had the courage to do what you're doing. I've wanted to do it since I was a teenager. But so I guess my question is about your perspective on regenerative agriculture. I think one of the biggest arguments that I've heard has to do with scale.
Yeah.
That regenerative agriculture takes more labor, and so it's harder to do at scale. And You know, we're at 8.2 billion people now and supposed to be at 9 billion people by mid-century. Wondering what your take on the labor involved. Like if you were farming your third acre conventionally just to do your CSA, would it take more labor? Is the labor a function, I guess here's another way to think about it. Is the labor a function of the style of the agriculture or of the size of the operation? Or some other some other option?
So I'm really glad you asked that question. I just listened to an incredibly inspiring podcast yesterday about a farmer out in the Dakotas farming 2,800 acres, which is a lot of land in my opinion. However, in his region, he's considered a smaller farmer.
Okay.
That being said, he switched to regenerative agriculture 3 years ago, and I was very curious how he did some of the methods. And so a big component of regenerative farming is composting. So he obviously can't spread 2 or 3 inches of compost on 2,800 acres, especially as in the operation that he has, which is non-bio intensive, you know, tractor implements, everything is planted through machines. And so what he's doing is he's making liquid compost teas. And that's how he's getting the microbes out onto the land. And so 2 to 3 pounds of compost can be spread over an acre of land versus, you know, 1 square foot in our application. So there are methods to reduce the amount of input put in, the amount of fertilizers, and then with no-till systems, these aren't as streamlined on a large scale. They're not as basic because a lot of no-till involves more labor-intensive methods. A lot of like no-till conventional farmers are just like herbiciding the cover crop and then using a no-till drill. I do not promote glyphosate at all or any kinds of conventional agriculture. But there are new innovative people, like there are people out there who are creating tools and making systems where it can be done on a larger scale through you know, cover crop that is winter killed, like oats and peas blends. And those will add the nutrients back to the soil and leave a plant debris that these no-till drills can move right through. So I can't say that I have all the solutions for large scale. However, I think that that is in part some of the problem that we are growing food on such large scale that one person is responsible for 3 to 3 million acres. I think that we need a lot more people involved in agriculture. And the farmers that are doing it on a larger scale need to be a little more involved than they are now. The solutions are not going to be that you can just purchase everything that you need for your operation. The solutions are going to involve a bit more creativity, a bit more innovation, a bit more knowledge and understanding of soil science.
Yeah, well, if I can chime in, I think that we're growing a lot of acreage just to create fuels. So I
Yes,
mean,
and feed.
we're not growing food, we're growing fuels. So I mean, that might have to be curved a little bit, but regenerative agriculture, we know that it can be profitable. The yields might go down, but you know, it could be more profitable because you don't have all this input of chemicals. So your input is decreased and your output is also decreased, but at the end of the day, the farmer might be just as profitable.
And there actually are studies that show that depending on your nutrient management, the yields don't actually have to decrease.
Right.
So
Yeah.
So I mean, you know, I'm more curious about how, right? So, you know, most of the corn what, 70% of the corn we grow is to feed animals or to produce ethanol, right? So
Right.
yeah,
Mhm.
we could reduce the acreage that we have under cultivation by changing that. But I'm kind of, I'm more interested in whether, I mean, you often hear people complain that regenerative practices, organic practices are labor intensive, and I just question that.
Well,
Right.
yeah, I mean, a lot of invention doesn't go into farming. A lot of smart people are involved in creating new algorithms and
Right.
creating new weapons and whatever. So, I mean, if we had some of this capacity looking into this issue, I think that it could be solved.
Yeah.
For example, we know our colleague here in town. He's working on a new roller crimper, so to crimp down the
Rye cover crop.
rye cover crop into a thick mat of it. Basically, it works as a
Living.
weed suppressant, but this machine doesn't really exist on a large scale. So I mean,
No, it
because
doesn't.
well, it does, but I mean, it could be popularized and so I think some invention up front needs to happen
Yeah.
for this
Right.
to be like you're saying, no, not a labor intensive endeavor, an enterprise. But again, we need to have more people thinking about it.
Right. I don't know if anyone read the quote that I had on the last page, but it was by a Amish farmer, John Kemp, who's really well known in the regenerative ag uh world. And it basically said that if farmers were to put all of their creativity, ingenuity, effort, and passion into any other profession, they would make 4 to 5 times as much money as they do now. And I think that that really is a statement that stands for the broken systems that we have, because everyone eats food. Like, it's become such a commodity and so subsidized that there's no longer value to the food that we have, proper value that can provide a proper income and living wage for people. And so that's going to be the biggest barrier for people getting into this field.
Yeah.
Is just that it's really challenging to make.
I don't know how big of an operation, a minimum size operation you need to make a no-till drill worthwhile.
I think it's also a function of the flexibility of some of these players involved. Is I mean, I see it in the building industry, construction industry. It's like, oh, this is how we've done it always. And so also with the farmers, I mean, they're not willing to innovate. We have 40 acres here right next to us, which is farmed conventionally, and we're always kicking this idea to adopt this particular farmer and then just start him off at 40 acres. Maybe we can guide him somehow, or maybe we can make a concerted effort into try regenerative farming here in Kalamazoo County in a larger scale. I mean, he rents it out sometimes to a potato farmer. It's just a complete disaster the way we grow potatoes. I mean, the field runoff and things of this nature. So I think it's just changing hearts and minds of some of these players who are not very flexible into looking at this issue in a new light.
But that's why I see the most valuable thing that we're doing here is working with children and educating the future and bridging that connection to the land. And even though some of these children may not keep coming back year after year, like, I think that they'll always remember this experience and know that, like, it is possible to grow my food. It is possible to grow food for other people, and it is possible to keep animals and to live this type of life, and that we all need to really get back to, at least.
We do have some other questions. Rick had a question that he wrote out. Do you use refrigeration in the summertime, and is that a normal refrigerator, or do you have any kind of special refrigeration? And also, have you considered induction electric cooking, because that uses so much less electricity?
So I'll talk about the refrigeration, because that is something, if we plan to expand our production, that's something we're going to need to consider. As it is now, I picked the CSA fresh the day of. And so I haven't found it. I had a great need for refrigeration to store crops. But that is something we would need to consider. We do run a refrigeration for our family use. And that seems to always stay on and not require too much power. You want to talk about the induction?
Induction. Yeah, I'm not very familiar with this. I mean, we're trying to, I mean, we do convert the 12 volt or 24 volt into 120 volt. So we found out that the Instapot is really nice. I mean, it's so insulated, and it doesn't take a whole lot of energy to run off solar. The Instapot. The induction, I mean,
We can check into that.
we can check into that, but I feel like it requires the whole set of new cookware and things like this we're not really willing to invest in. But it's just I guess it's a function of how much you want to invest into it.
But that's why we want to invest in the methane biodigester, because that's true sustainability, you know? Solar, like the batteries go bad over time. We're not claiming that to be like the ultimate solution.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're kind of lazy people who like to go to movies too.
With the methane digester, that's sort of that biogas thing that you were also showing us, right? It's just a larger version of that. So you would do your own composting and capture your own methane instead of having the whatever that contraption was. Is that?
Well,
Or-
that's we were showing that as something that would just be like something you could purchase and use right away.
Yeah.
So I mean that's something we'd like to obtain, something like that, just because we don't really have the time to put into creating something. However, if someone was really innovative and wanted to like
Okay.
come out and build a biodigester, especially like students or someone who was doing wanted to run an experiment or a study, like this is the place to do that.
Yeah, the Department of Energy is making a big push for it, even on the state level. There's a couple of operations even in Grand Rapids. They take overs and unders in some from processing plants, and then they're taking these things and then putting it in biodigesting and then creating methane. So municipalities are turning into this solution. They're trying to get the food scraps out of the waste stream and then capture the methane and burn it.
Okay. So it's sort of an enclosed composting system then. So
Correct.
Yeah, an anaerobic. It's an anaerobic microbes, right?
Yeah, I think you have to inoculate it with some special microbes.
Okay.
Conditions. Yeah.
That turn it into methane gas, and then that like inflates in that big sack, and then it's siphoned off and
Yeah, that creates
controlled the amount of gas that comes out of it.
Yeah, that rubber bladder kind of creates that pressure that you need for the methane to be driven through the piping
Okay.
for the end use.
It's probably a pretty basic system, but you are
Right.
dealing with like flammable gas. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tim, you have your hand up?
Larissa, can you say anything? I'm very impressed by your knowledge, your commitment, your values. Can you say anything about where all of that came from in you?
Oh, thank you. That's a lovely question. I think it really started pretty young. So I was raised in the country, and my family always had a large garden that we were involved in. But I really think that I got a real spark of passion when I started traveling. So I traveled for about a year through Central and South America, and then another several months in Europe. And I just backpacked through. I hitchhiked. I met all kinds of people doing amazing things. And I've stayed at some eco villages, which were really, really inspiring to see people living and working together on the land. And then as far as the straw bale building goes, I always knew that I wanted to have a circular straw bale house. I knew two things: that I would marry a European and that I would have a circular straw bale house. and those came true. Even though the circular part almost didn't, because this engineer thought he couldn't do it, but then we were inspired by someone. However, I don't think I'd build another circular structure. It added a lot of time, especially when it came to the roof. Anyway, so I stayed at a farm in Virginia, and their mission was completely fossil fuel free living. So everyone who was a part of the community there, they weren't allowed to have cars. And their main focus was in direct drive solar. So they also didn't, they had one small battery that they used for charging cell phones, but their main thing was truly sustainable solar living, which is DC power. Only could probably talk more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was talking about it was more of a philosophical question. Where's your motivation come from? For me, it's through our Christian upbringing. Christ said, sell everything and give everything to the poor and follow me. And then it's like, how do I answer this call? I mean, it works on the spectrum. I can go out there. I've been involved in engineering in Kalamazoo. I go out there and work 50, 60 hours a week, make a lot of money. Or you could scale it down and you can be on the land and be involved with the community, make less money, work less for the corporations. It's just I think it's just my answer to this call is like give everything away and follow me. And it's this is my way of doing it. It's of course we can be rich in a different way. It's I think the wealth is how much you make versus how much you spend. And if you're not spending anything, then you're really wealthy. So I think that's my motivation and my philosophy is give everything away and then follow me. But so I have children, I can't give everything away. So it's just kind of like modest living,
Yeah,
So-
I think our kids really promoted this life as well, having children. And
yeah, it's just slower living. I mean, if you have to work 60 hours a week, then you have to buy more gas, then you have to you live on a higher frequency, everything is more. You make more, you pay more taxes, everything is more and more and more. If you scale it down, then you have, everything is less, so I think that's the philosophy underlying. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thanks.
Any more questions at this time? Yeah, and I appreciate the way you want to work with children because I think that's the future. I think we really need to be thinking about what is this world going to be like for our kids and our grandkids.
yeah, great. Well, thank you so much, Nikki, and everyone who attended. And if you want to follow us on social media, we have Instagram. That's probably the platform we use the most. And if you're interested in volunteering or have skills in web design, or any other way you want to contribute to our cause, feel free to reach out to me on my email. Yeah. Anything
Yeah.
else?
Thank you very
One
much.
last question. You work with children and teaching them about gardening. Do you do that with adults also? Or is that what the volunteer program is all about? You learn how to do this.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, one of our future ideas is to start a community garden, where people can not just have the space, but also be able to have classes where we have different topics that we can teach about, from composting to proper plant spacing to all the things. Currently we don't have any programs in place for that, but we do just take volunteers, and we have people out here regularly who help out in the gardens or help with the house building. So yeah, that's something we may consider in the future. It also just depends how many more people we can gather to help us build this.
Yeah, on that front, I would be very interested in working with refugees. I mean, some of these people who come here from Middle East are used to tending to gardens, and they come over here. They're kind of pushed into the suburbia or some.
Mhm.
So through working at Western, I know that there would be a lot of interest in that, renting out plots and having people come out and because they like to grow some different type of vegetables which could be grown here, you know. So I'd be interested in doing something like that.
Have you talked to the communities, like talked to the imam or gone to, for the
Yeah,
Muslim community or,
some of the
you know,
people from the community, we're
there's
kicking.
an African church that
Yeah,
is.
we're really near. We're
yeah.
really near the African church, actually. I
Yeah.
was considering that could be great.
Yeah, that was the feedback that we get, you know, that
Yeah.
we got. And so working with adults, like who would be interested, what kind of adults would be really into this? And I think, offset the prices of food that I tell them, oh, you can have a CSA and cost this much and this much. Oh, it's too much money. You know, it's
Right,
like,
but-
I just go to Meijer and get it cheaper. But, you know, they say, oh, this tastes very like in my own country. But what they really mean to say, it's this food is fresh, you know, so.
Yeah,
So
and oftentimes
yeah.
those people can't find all the vegetables that they like to eat on a regular basis. They're not even available, and so
Right.
So I'd like to maybe capture this particular demographic
need. Yeah,
because I think that there's a
Okay.
need, and I think that would be quite therapeutic for everybody involved.
Okay, I was just curious if you've been reaching out to them. Okay.
Yeah, but we were thinking in this direction for adults, and that's what our conclusion was.
Okay. Thank you.
yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, so thank you for your time. Thank you for your information.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.